Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, John and Lee proudly present the greatest wrestling show ever!
Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of the greatest wrestling tournament ever. It's the second match. Now, we agreed last week that we were going to have Ultimate Warrior versus Andre the Giant, but when we looked on cagematches.net, the vast majority of their singles matches seemed to last about 30 seconds, or those that did weren't all that much longer. And to be honest, even the longest matches I couldn't imagine were all that much cop and wouldn't make for the most entertaining of podcasts. And if there's one thing we're renowned for, Lee, it's been entertaining podcasters.
Absolutely.
That's what people say. When I'm walking down the street, they hear comes an entertaining podcaster.
We've got a reputation to uphold.
Yeah. So what we've done instead, we've looked at matches that they were both in. One option we had was Royal Rumble 1990, but we decided on the Survivor Series 1989 match of the Warriors, which is Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, and Jim Neidhart versus the Heenan family, Bobby Heenan, the Colossal Connection, Andre the Giant and Haku, and Arn Anderson. So we're on the WWE Network, Survivor Series 89. We're in the Warriors being interviewed before the match section. It's 2 hours 13:02. I don't actually know if anyone has ever gone to the right point in the pay-per-view and listened to this alongside, but we've been doing it so far. Yeah, we've got to continue. So 2 hours 13:02, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. Look at the Warrior. He's an absolute beast, isn't he?
Machine.
I wonder he died in a heart attack. Yeah. So you've got Michaels, Jannetty there, Neidhart. So Neidhart and Jannetty have got something in common in being the half of their tag team that didn't make it to world title level.
Yeah. I can't remember what's going on here. I can't remember why Neidhart's fighting on his own, because the Hart Foundation were definitely a thing at this point.
Is Brett in a different match? Let's have a look. Brett was in the King's Court match versus the 4x4s. So he was on Jim Duggan's team along with Ronnie Garvin and Hercules, facing Randy Savage, the Canadian Earthquake, Dino Bravo, and Greg Valentine. That seems to be 5 against 4. No, it's not. I can't count. That was 4 versus 4 earlier in the night. I don't really know why they're separate. Maybe just it fitted better with what they wanted to do. Maybe, I know right before they actually finally pulled the trigger on pushing Brett as a singles wrestler in sort of 91, they had teased that a few times over the years, hadn't they? So maybe this was in a period where they were just seeing what sort of reaction he got going it by himself.
Yeah, this is before, I'd say, the high point for the Hart Foundation.
Well, they'd already been champions at this point. So originally they won
the
tag titles, winning them from the British Bulldogs after Dynamite Kid got injured. I want to say December 86. So this was a good few years after that. They won them again at, was it SummerSlam 90, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, 3-4 match against Demolition.
Yeah, this is, you were saying earlier, this is your peak period of being a wrestling fan. So you watched this, only didn't have Sky, did you? So did you watch this on a tape on delay or something?
No, I won't have watched this live. I can't remember I watched this. I must have got it on VHS. Unless my mate had it. I'm sure they were broadcasting on Sky at this point.
Was it on like Sky Movies or something like that?
I watched Royal Rumble 90, which was obviously the event after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like this is the golden era for me, as far as I'm concerned. It's just when it was at its absolute best.
So you've got Bobby Heenan there actually joining in the match now. Just having a quick look at the Wikipedia page, and I seem to remember this being the case. He's taking part. He's joining in the match because Tully Blanchard has just been fired only days before, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I don't remember that.
Cocaine. He was busted for cocaine.
The Weasel.
So Tully Blanchard was originally scheduled to be part of the Heenan family. He was fired from the WWF on the day of the event of the pay-per-view for failing a drugs test. He was replaced by Bobby Heenan. Now, I've read about this a few times before, about Tully Blanchard getting fired for testing positive for cocaine. And whilst, of course, testing positive for cocaine is not okay, surely he wasn't the only person who was tested positive or was using cocaine at the time.
Maybe a load of them were found at the same time, but they had to have a full guy.
Yeah, true. Maybe they all shoved it in Tully's bag while he wasn't watching.
Yeah.
Because that was then pretty much the end of Tully Blanchard. The
Yeah.
Blanchard and Anderson had been offered a new contract by Jim Crockett Promotions, part of the NWA at that point, and were due to go back. But they, I believe, reneged their offer, which again is slightly surprising because it's not like he's the only one. Is this actually going to be Andre out now? Andre's just been clotheslined out of the ring by the Warrior. Is that the entire extent of the Warrior versus Andre interaction, do you think? I think it is. I think it is. So that wasn't much more than the 30 seconds we'd have got if we watched one of their singles matches.
He got his signature chokehold in anyway.
He did.
And then Warrior's extremely weak clotheslines taking him out.
He's already starting to look fairly immobile up there, though, Andre, isn't he? He's definitely considerably past his prime at that point.
100%, yeah.
I think we've possibly done the whole concept a slight disservice by claiming this to be a tournament match between Andre and the Warrior. Oh well. Okay, so Warrior's just flung in Arn Anderson and Haku. Now Anderson must be about 30-ish years old there, not much older. Maybe like 32, 33, but people in the 80s definitely looked
great, does he, for his age?
But he never aged. He looked at that sort of age when he was probably, I don't know, 25, but also when he was about 45.
Ryan's saying that his WWE, WWF career was quite short-lived. He was mainly a WCW guy, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He came in with the aforementioned Tully Blanchard as the Brain Busters. I remember watching him on Saturday Night's Main Event on a tape I got a few years later. So he's 31 here. 31. Wow. He was born in 58. He's 31. Amazing. So I think they did win the tag titles, the Brain Busters, but they are definitely better known as WCW NWA guys. And having left WWF shortly after this, Arn did return, reformed the Four Horsemen, went on to hold the World Tag Team titles in WCW a number of other times with the likes of Bobby Eaton, I think possibly with Paul Roma when he was part of the Four Horsemen.
All right. Andre sensing some sort of injustice has been done there.
Yeah, he just making a noise, wasn't he, though? He wasn't even saying anything. He was just going, oh. Which, to be honest, is generally what he did. And even when he spoke, he'd often get the words wrong, wouldn't he? It's like when he won the world title from Hogan and said he was giving up the tag title. And you're like, what match have you been watching, Andre? What's going on, mate? It's not that difficult. You've been in it. You should really know what's going on. Obviously, English was his second language, but still.
Want to have a pop at some Andre trivia?
Definitely, yeah.
So again, it's per. So you'll have to adjust your guesses because they are per cage match. .net, whatever it is, which I know they doesn't account for everything. So what do you think their rating out of 10 is for Andre the Giant, which I think is based on votes?
So is this a rating for his match quality, or is it like an overall superstar?
I imagine somewhat of a clue that it's based on how much of a superstar he was.
Okay, 8.2.
7.64.
Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. That's close.
Yeah. And per this, he had, aside from Andre the Giant, I've got
Neidhart's gone. He's gone. So I think Haku just headbutted him in the back of the head because he's got, he's not white. He's got a really hard head. So he headbutts someone else and it hurts the other guy a lot more than it hurts him.
So yeah, I've got 8 alter egos for Andre the Giant.
Okay, 8. Wow. Okay, so Andre the French Giant.
Andre the Giant Frenchman.
Okay, Monster Rusimov.
Just a literal description. Andre Rusimov, yeah.
Giant Rusimov.
Monster Rusimov.
Monster Rusimov, sorry, yeah. I think that's what I said a second ago. Yeah, Monster Rusimov. Jean Ferreira.
Yes.
Well, I'm on 4 now. Trying to get some of the variation on Andre. Now, I'm probably going to have to pass, I think.
Well, you've got what sounds like a Spanish translation, but just Andre El Gigante.
Okay, fair enough.
Giant Machine.
Of course, yeah, he's in the machines, wasn't he? I told you about them before with Hulk Machine and Piper Machine and
Polish Giant.
Okay, interesting. I presume he was billed as being Polish at some point, was he?
And my favourite of all, Monster Eiffel Tower.
Oh, I did know that. I had heard that. Yeah.
Because I like it because he's not the Eiffel Tower. He's much bigger than the Eiffel Tower. He's
Yeah.
a monster.
Eiffel Tower's tiny by comparison.
Yeah. I thought it was excellent. And how many matches do you reckon he had per cage match?
Ooh, so again, fairly full schedule, probably from early 60s to early 80s, so 20-ish years. 4,000 on cage matches.
2.5.
Okay, cool. So reverting back to Haku there, Haku, also known as Meng in WCW, was widely acknowledged as being one of the toughest men ever in wrestling.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know how accurate it is. I mean, clearly he is pretty tough, but I don't know if he's actually ever done anything particularly other than maybe a few bar fights to have that reputation. Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels there doing the double super kick. You've got to feel sorry for Jannetty in some ways that he was very much Shawn Michaels' peer at this point, wasn't he? Jim Neidhart and Bret Hart, great as Neidhart was, Bret was always the potential standout.
Yeah.
Whereas Michaels and Jannetty, I know a number of people actually predicted bigger things for Jannetty.
I think Shawn Michaels just knew how to play the game better.
Yeah, I think Jannetty largely bought everything on himself. I think, well, to a degree anyway, that's my understanding. Have you seen his stuff on Facebook nowadays? He's crackers, Jannetty is. Have you seen?
Yeah, well, I remember the stuff years ago about his daughter and stuff, and
there's been a more recent thing where he essentially said that he'd murdered somebody who'd messed with his brother, and then when people pointed out that that's illegal and the police should look into it, he said, "I was only joking. I didn't really." Not me. And I'm fairly sure there's something about him trying to work some sort of angle with someone. It's all a little bit weird. I think he's lost the plot somewhat. Do you know how long the Rockers' first run with WWF lasted?
First run?
Mm-hmm.
Was it a very short period of time?
Very.
When they were what they were called, they weren't called the Rockers, were they?
I think they were always called the Rockers in WWF. They were the Midnight Rockers when they were in AWA.
That's what I'm thinking of, Midnight Rockers. Go on, was it like a day or something?
It was a day, yeah. They came in and they had one match. They got involved in some shenanigans of some sort in the bar that night, which I think involved them breaking glasses, possibly crushing glasses in their mouth or something like that.
Yeah.
And were called in the next day and fired. Came back afterwards, but yeah.
I remember in Shawn Michaels, I'm sure there was some sort of blame put on peer pressure. I think they very much felt they had to kind of impress because they were quite small guys for the time. I think they felt they sort of had to overdo it elsewhere to make up their lack of size. I think
they've got a reputation as party animals and felt they needed to back that up somehow.
I mean, some of the stuff they did for the time was pretty groundbreaking. It was sort of stuff we see all the time these days, but they were phenomenal movers.
100%, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Again, for the time, it's the majority. I mean, you can compare them to Andre, who can barely move, Warrior, who can move quickly for maybe 20 seconds and needs a rest. Guys like that can put on a heck of a performance by comparison.
Yeah.
I was also reading a little bit about Meng the other day. I didn't realise Meng was super over and was being pushed as a potential big star during his early days in WWF a couple of years before this, but very much then soon settled into the role that you see him now and is more famously remembered as. I believe is actually Bobby Heenan's just jumped in there and back out again. I think Meng is part of the tag champions with Andre at this point, isn't he? Colossal Connection.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I do remember them holding the belts.
They definitely were the champions, and I feel they lost them back at WrestleMania 6, which is in early 90, and I feel they held them for a number of months. I feel they probably would be the champions here. Losing back at 6 the same night that Warrior beats Hogan for the title. Best night of your life.
Oh, what a night. What a day.
Amazing. The Warrior's had his rest now and he's back in with Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson's one of those wrestlers where at the time I had no interest in whatsoever, quite a boring character.
Yeah.
But then as an adult, you kind of appreciate more.
Of course, yeah.
Worker, taking bumps and what have you.
He's back now, actually, in AEW, Arn Anderson, I believe. He's doing something. Oh my goodness, sorry. Sorry, someone's just knocking on the window there. I've had a delivery. The dog's going crazy.
Whereas big characters like the Warrior is a complete flip. Whereas back then, I absolutely loved the Warrior, idolized the Warrior. But then you're watching him now, and it's kind of like, my word.
Of course, yeah, definitely. I think isn't Tully Blanchard back as well? Or am I getting the wrong way around? I think Tully Blanchard perhaps is in AEW at the moment, or possibly Arn Anderson as well.
Wrestling?
No, like in some sort of manager role.
Right.
Do you know Tully Blanchard's daughter Tessa became the first ever female world heavyweight champion last year? I don't know if you saw that.
No.
In TNA, just before pandemic time, I think she won the title from Sami Callihan, I remember, if I remember correctly. First woman to ever win a recognised world title in a fairly major promotion. She then refused to then do anything when the pandemic happened, didn't submit any of the videos she was asked to do or anything that could build to future storylines, and was stripped to the title. Apparently she's notoriously hard work, but that's only from what I've seen and read on the internet.
Right.
I know very little about it, to be fair.
I don't know what's going on then, but I saw Warrior manhandling Ale Hebner.
Okay, all right. You've been disqualified for that then, surely.
Do you remember the evil twin thing with the Hebners?
Oh, of course I do, yeah. I mean, again, I didn't see it at the time. I saw it years later, but I remember Hogan's ludicrous overreaction afterwards, where he's talking about the plastic surgery and he's shaking his head and his hands are in the air in a way that no human actually ever reacts.
Do you want to have a pop at Andre's top 5 opponents?
Is this in number of matches?
Number of matches, yeah.
So, it's not going to be someone like Hogan, because I said a couple of famous matches against
Hogan's
him.
5th.
Okay, 5th, right, okay. That's a tricky one. It might be someone random like Abdullah the Butcher.
No.
I'm thinking
random.
Who would he have been put against sort of on like a house show circuit? Big John Studd?
He's 2nd. Andre spent a lot of time in Japan, I think he did, didn't he?
Inoki?
Yeah, number 1.
Right, brilliant. What's his name? Giant Barber?
No.
Okay, cool. Maybe I've got 3 out of 5. Who are the other 2?
Seiji Sakaguchi.
I know the name, but I don't really.
And Ken Patera.
Okay, right, interesting. There's a match in Japan, I forget who it's against, where Andre apparently famously decides just to stop selling for his opponent. For whatever reason, is annoyed by the opponent, a Japanese guy, and he just stops reacting, just stops selling until the Japanese guy just runs off, I think, at the end.
Oh, Haku's gone.
That's a classic example there of, so Michaels hit a crossbody off the top, which potentially can be a finisher, but Warrior pushed him slightly, which obviously souped up a little bit and made it. And also always at the Survivor Series, you had people getting eliminated by moves that would never normally eliminate them in a normal match. Right. And having actually only wrestled for 30 seconds out of the last 5 minutes as well. So they do a few back and forth exchanges and get small packaged when they never ever lost a normal match like that. Oh my goodness, Bobby Heenan's climbing the ropes.
Come on, Bobby.
Oh my goodness, going to the top rope. Surely not. Surely not. Now, Bobby Heenan was actually a wrestler before he became a manager, so obviously he's got some level of ability and understanding in that role.
I think he's one of the best characters ever to grace WWE, Bobby Heenan.
Definitely, yeah.
He's just fantastic at everything that he did. Even when he was, and then even his colour commentary days. I don't think I've seen a better one since him and Gorilla Monsoon, who of course were best friends in real life.
I believe so, yeah. He had a number of matches or angles, whatever, with the Warrior, possibly around this time, and didn't rate him at all, apparently.
Yeah.
Got dropped by him every time, pretty much, and stiffed and hurt when he didn't really need to be.
So what do you reckon Warrior's rating is on Cage Match?
So again, is this superstar quality, yeah? Not match quality?
I'm not sure. It'd make more sense if it's match quality.
2?
It's 4.6.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Warriors matches were never good, and I think time hasn't been kind to him overall, which is possibly somewhat self-inflicted by some of his views that have come out since and what have you. But he was always very much about style over substance, wasn't he?
Yeah. They've got him down for 900 matches with an 85% win rate, which is high, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyone higher than that?
Well, I should check that, shouldn't I?
Maybe Goldberg. I mean, Goldberg only lost a handful of times.
I reckon you could have a really good guess. I reckon I'd have done all right on this. He's top 5 opponents, most wrestled.
For the Warrior?
Yeah.
Savage?
Is number 2.
Hogan?
No.
Probably not, actually, no.
No.
Andre?
Number 4.
Undertaker?
Number 5.
Rick Rude?
Number 1.
I'm missing one, am I still? Piper?
No. Not a clue.
Go on.
What's the title he currently holds that we're watching?
Tag title, so Demolition?
No, the title that Warrior currently holds in this Survivor Series now.
Oh, sorry. I moved on to Andre for half a second in my head there. Intercontinental title, so Mr. Perfect?
No.
Who did he beat for the title? Honky Tonk Man?
Yes. Honky Tonk Man held it for a hell of a long time, didn't he? And then got beaten seconds off Warrior.
He did, yeah. I remember that. SummerSlam, yeah. Warrior's in trouble. He's out. Bobby Heenan's going up. He's going to do something. He's going to do a shooting star press to the floor. I'm calling it. That would be huge. Did you ever used to have like games on the PlayStation 2 where your characters could do like ridiculous moves? They'd do like a double moonsault off the top of a cage. It was awesome. And sometimes they'd glitch halfway down and then crash onto their opponent. Okay, so Anderson's rolling Warrior back in. So we're down to we're down to Heenan and Anderson versus.
Yeah, and I can remember how this goes as well.
So presumably, obviously, Warrior's going to win. So we need to then figure out who he faces in the next round. Now, we've already got Ric Flair through from the last, whatever it is, quarterfinal. Flair versus Warrior. I did have a quick look on cage matches, and I think there wasn't all that much. There was a few title matches that ended in no contest, so that's definitely an option. Well, I suppose let's get through all the way through the first round before we start deciding who gets paired off in the second round.
Yeah. That. I'll leave Warrior down for the next one.
I presume you enjoyed Royal Rumble 1990 when Hogan and Warrior finally faced off in the Rumble?
Yes.
That was a big build, I should imagine, for a 10-year-old at the time.
Yeah, and I was full on Hogan. Most of my friends were Warrior fans. I mean, I was a Warrior fan, but I preferred Hogan.
Was it a bit like how, if you're a child of that generation, you picked between Man U and Liverpool?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Do you think you made the right choice in both of those?
In the football,
did.
Yeah, actually, in both of them, I reckon.
Yeah, you got more longevity and what have you for both Hogan and Man U.
Hogan was a better performer overall. That's
all relative, isn't it?
It's just that, but the splash move that he does is bad enough at the best times, but when he lands on the back,
yeah, it never looks all that effective, does it? No. So that's Heenan now left and coming against Warrior, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened when Warrior came back in 2014? Are you aware of
that? Came back to wrestle?
No, came back to WWE, not to wrestle. So he'd last wrestled for WWF in summer of '96. He was fired after he no-showed a number of events. He told Vince afterwards that I think his dad had died, but apparently the timing of that wasn't quite right. So his dad did die, but possibly after he'd already missed a couple of the shows or something like that.
Right.
Vince fired him. He came back for a couple of matches in WCW in '98, but that was him done then, other than a one-off appearance in 2008 in Italy against Orlando Jordan. And for many years, he was very critical of WWF. He expressed a number of views perhaps they didn't want to be associated with, particularly homophobic ones, in interviews online. But then in 2014, he came back and they inducted him into the Hall of Fame. So this would have been the night before WrestleMania 30. Comes out on stage at WrestleMania 30. Next night comes out on Raw. So first appearance on Raw in about 10 years.
I am pretty good. I didn't realise it was that long ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago now, yeah. That's a big bump out of the ring from Heenan there.
And then he died the night.
Yes, he talks in his interview about how, I mean, it's obviously one of these things in retrospect, looking back, it seemed pertinent. He talks about how when every man takes his last breath and all this sort of stuff, and then pretty much walked out and dropped down dead of a heart attack.
Yeah.
He's since had an award named after him every year. They do the Warrior Award. Don't know if you've seen that.
No, how do you do that?
So it's essentially, he just keeps running, doesn't he, Warrior? He just keeps on running until the guy's in the right place. There we go, shoulder block. It was based off something he said in his speech about, I think it's been slightly retconned. I think he talked more about unsung heroes in WWE, the people that did his makeup and filmed it and created his outfits and all that sort of stuff, about them needing more recognition. And I think that after his death, that was somewhat retconned to be then given to someone who showed like a special spirit of the warrior. So they gave it to that Connor kid, if you remember him, the one that was with Daniel Bryan when he won the world title, who sadly died of cancer not long afterwards. They gave it to him. They gave it to some other people who I can't remember.
Right. No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so it's part of every year, part of the Hall of Fame ceremony, if I remember correctly. He just gave Bobby Heenan a little clothesline to the back there as he ran past, a little slide dig. Right, so that is the main event, isn't it? That's the show over. You can hear Gorilla there bringing the show to a close. It says Warrior, after briefly posing in the ring with the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship belt, knocked down a groggy Heenan in the aisle shortly before the pay-per-view signed off. Right, let's have a look at what we're going to do for next week. So, need to find. Well, they're showing now the recap videos. I used to love those recap videos at the end.
Yeah, with the cheesy music.
Yeah.
Really, really ill-fitting music.
Right, so should we go? We've done two fairly old ones now, both from 1989, funnily enough, actually.
I was going to say, should we bring it up to...
Should we do a Roman Reigns one then? Who's Reigns going to be against? We've had him against Lesnar, Orton from Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. Have had some good matches only last year. That's probably all we're going to get Reigns with, isn't it? Orton or Lesnar, I think.
What about Roman Reigns versus Randy from SummerSlam 2014?
Really? Okay. Yeah, okay, fair enough, yeah. I don't remember that in the slightest, but so that's when he's starting to get his push. He's still a member of the Shield, isn't he? But actually, no, the Shield have split at that point, haven't they? Rollins has turned on them. It's probably the start of his singles push. Okay, we'll do that. Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns, SummerSlam 2014.
Excellent.
See you next week.